years, and have said we've said that we needed to do this, but we haven't done it before. And we were so excited to have him because it has been just really a very marvelous experience to meet different people that applied for this job. And we had quite a few that actually applied, but we had three in the last bit that we interviewed, and we chose Joaquin. And Joaquin has quite a resume, and he was born here on Whidbey Island. He has lived here some, and he has also lived in Costa Rica, and he has a lot of exciting things that he's thinking of for doing for Whidbey Audubon. And we want to hear from him tonight. But before he does, everybody take yourself off of mute. Everybody take yourself off of mute. And I want all of us to clap for Joaquin. We are so glad to have him. Okay. Go ahead, Joaquin, and everybody mute yourself again, please.
How's everybody doing? Thank you for the warm welcome, Patty. And it's been really, really lovely meeting everybody little by little here, starting with the Whidbey Audubon Society. I've gotten a little bit of work, and I've gotten a little bit of introductions done with many of the members of the board of directors. Everybody's been super helpful. I really, really appreciate that. Judy Bishop would like to control my camera. Sure, Judy, you can control my camera. In the meantime, that was a weird notification. So yeah, I'm really excited to be part of the Whidbey Audubon Society, and I look forward to getting to do some important work with all of you. You know, protecting the birds and the wildlife of Whidbey. As I'm getting started, I really do. I said this in if you've read the newsletter, I did write a little letter introducing myself there. And I'll say the most important part again, which is that I really invite you all to share your ideas and perspectives and hopes and dreams for the future of the Whidbey Audubon Society. You know, through collaboration, that's how we protect the world, right? So a little bit about me. As Patty said, I was born on Whidbey, and then I have my name being Joaquin. You might wonder, well, that's a funny name for a Whidbey Islander, but my dad is Costa Rican, and half of my family's Costa Rican. My whole life we've been moving back and forth a little bit. I went to university there. I studied biology. I'm a biologist from the University of Costa Rica. And then I worked as the director of philanthropy at the Karen Mogensen Reserve, which is in the Nicoya Peninsula. So pretty coastal area, really, really beautiful. As a Whidbey native and as a Costa Rican, I've always been drawn to beautiful places and to, you know, places with a good connection to the natural world. That's been super, super important to me. I'm passionate about conservation, and I'm passionate about education. I worked as a teacher for a while, as a high school teacher in Costa Rica also. And so I'm really excited to promote, you know, advocacy and community engagement and some education at the Whidbey Audubon Society. And on that note, if anybody is interested in joining, we are looking for like-minded people, which I believe we all are because we're all sitting here about to talk about birds. But if anybody's interested in working in conservation or education or any other volunteer work with the Whidbey Audubon Society, we're trying to build kind of a coalition of volunteers. I'm going to send a link in the chat here right now. So you should all be able to see that if you enter the chat, where you can go to that link. You can fill out a form that we've got set up on the website, and that'll allow you to sign up and say kind of if you have any specific areas of interest. We're not going to force you to do anything that you don't want to do. But yeah, if anybody's interested in working with us, with like-minded people working in education or conservation or, you know, field trips to go look at birds and stuff, let us know. We'd be happy to have you. So yeah, thank you so much for your time, and I'm excited to listen to this program meeting. This is gonna be great.
Thank you, Joaquin. Does anybody want to say anything to Joaquin special? Everybody's being quiet. Okay. All right. Let's see. We have several people that wanted to make announcements. And Pam, notice you had something about Wings Over Whidbey. You have to take yourself off of mute.
Yeah, I'm here. Am I okay now?
You are.
Great. Okay. Well, I'm really excited. I'm whittling away at tasks for Wings Over Whidbey. And I just did a rough computation, and it looks like we're we have promised or given fund sponsorships for Wings Over Whidbey, 20 up to 25. It's at $2,500 at this point. Our goal is 5,000, so we're halfway there. I just heard from Whidbey Tell today, and they're going to donate $250 towards our cause. And then I don't know, it's like the Coopville Historical District something or other. Anyway, they're going to donate 500. So anyway, I'm really excited. Rick Matson once again donated 1,000 in memory of his wife. And what else am I going to say? Oh, I just recruited a pizza truck to come. So we're going to have the Lions cook hot dogs and a pizza truck come from Fulla Farm. And yes. Oh, and then I've rented a nice tent for us to have a waterproof space for our children's area. And so we'll have face painters in there as well as our children's activities with specimens. So I'm really excited about it. I'm still looking for volunteers to help me get more sponsors. I will need some volunteers to help me with publicity once we get posters out and banners. And the big deal is volunteers for cleanup, because we're all of us who have been organizing this are going to be mighty tired, and we need some people at the end to wrap it up. It's May 17th, 11 to 3 at Pacific Rim Institute. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam. Okay. And I will go on and make an announcement about the field trip that's coming up in March. I'm leading the trip to Semiahoo, and this is going to be a really exciting trip. It happens in the middle of Wings Over Water, which is the actual bird festival in Semiahoo. And we will be leaving. It'll be an all-day trip. It'll be limited to 15 participants, but anybody on any level can do this because we just have such a good time seeing all the birds. There are lots of water birds. There are many water birds. They have all different kinds of common loons, Pacific loons, red-throated loons, and even right now they have a yellow-billed loon there. So it's really nice to be able to do that. You'll need to register online. It hasn't appeared yet because I haven't given the information yet, but I will do so shortly, and you will be able to look at it then. So anyway, it's going to be March 15th from 8:30 to 4:30 p.m. and all level of birders are welcome. So I hope that you'll sign up. So let's see. Govinda, is she here yet? I don't see Govinda, and I know that she wants to speak. Is David Parent here? David should mention the other trips that are coming up. We have every other week trips at Deception Pass with the people there because it's really a very good thing. Sarah, you want to speak to it?
Well, I can speak to January 25th.
Oh yeah, the red loon, red-throated loons.
January 25th is our annual big loons field trip to Deception Pass, meeting at 9 a.m. at West Beach at the northwest corner. It's primarily to see the red-throated loons flying in to fish in the outflowing waters of Deception Pass, and there will be lots of other fish-eating birds. It's always amazing. Dress for the weather, and just to give you a taste or whatever, at the Christmas bird count at Deception Pass, they counted 1,300 red-throated loons. So we could see hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands or more.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't believe any of these other people are here right now. So I think that we could go ahead and start and have poor Julie get to bed eventually tonight. And you want to take it over, Sarah?
Sure. I'm just checking one more time to see if anybody else that wanted to announce, but they're not saying anything. Okay, well, I am so thrilled to bring Julie Zickefoose to Whidbey Audubon Society. I discovered Julie's art and writing more than 20 years ago when I discovered Birdwatcher's Digest magazine, which featured her illustrations and writing. And I've continued to follow Julie's work in words and pictures in the new BWD magazine, along with numerous other venues. This is the latest Julie's art on the cover of the latest BW.
There we are.
Yay. And so Julie did nature commentaries on NPR from 2005 to 2010, and a lot of us are NPR listeners, so you may remember those. Julie so generously shares her knowledge and insights to a wide public through books, articles, talks, a blog, and social media. Julie's regular posts are my primary motivation to go to Facebook.
I'm sorry.
Julie invites us to follow along as she cares for a string of bluebird houses in the spring, shares the challenges and rewards of caretaking an 80-acre wildlife sanctuary that she manages on her own, and rescues many varieties of creatures, getting some to a rehab facility, rehabbing others herself, including bats. And all of you that know Sarah know that that's one of my passions too. So, so Julie offered us 5 possible programs. One that we didn't choose is Baby Birds, an artist looks into the nest. You can hear Julie do that one next Tuesday night by signing up at Skagit Audubon. Poor Julie is doing 2 West Coast talks just a few days apart. And it'll be on Zoom. And so I will put that link into the chat. So that's Baby Birds. The others were Personal Habitat, 30 years of wildlife gardening. Have you ever wondered what I've learned in 40 years of bluebirding? And Saving Jemima, Life and Love with a Hard Luck Jay, which, by the way, is a fabulous book. And then there's Books, Birds, and Following Passion's Path, an origin story that brings viewers into Julie's world. How could I resist the backstory of my longtime inspiration, this naturalist, author, illustrator, musician, and generous human being, and all-round naturalist who continually inspires me to open my eyes to the world around me. Welcome, Julie Zickefoose.
Oh, aren't you a sweetheart? Thank you so much, Sarah. It's an honor to be here, and all the cracks about the late night are true. I would normally be deep in slumberland right now, so I'm a very cheap date. I eat dinner at 5, and I'm usually in bed by 9:30. So it's now 10:23 p.m., and I'm going to rally and share my screen so we can get going here. Let's see, share. Note. Share. I am screen sharing. Yes, I am indeed. Play. There we are.
Okay, looks good.
Okay, very good. Well, yeah, so this is a bit of an origin story. It's kind of personal and but I find that people like that. They like knowing a little bit more. And so I'm just going to go through. This is the scene outside my home at this moment. We had 11 inches of snow about 4 nights ago, and it's just kept snowing since. And it's quite amazing. But after a while, you realize that it's a real drag to try to walk through a foot of snow. So when I got my driveway plowed out last night, I was so excited because I could actually walk again. This is what it looks like in April and May. Dogwoods in the orchard. I call this my office. And there's a little scene from High Summer with the Rose of Sharon and the Evening Primrose and my sweet dog, Curtis. This place is kind of the wellspring for everything I do. And if something is growing here and it's beautiful, I probably planted it. So I take a great deal of pride in that. Unfortunately, these New England asters were kind of a one-hit wonder. They were fabulous for a couple of years, and then they decided they didn't want to grow here anymore. And that's about what it looks like in early June. It's an ever-changing palette, and I absolutely love living here And I feel so grateful. So I hope that comes through in the talk, the gratitude I have for being able to live here. This is the view from that crazy looking birding tower that you saw in the last slide. And this is just an overview of part of the land that I manage. And I'm trying to increase diversity here in the birds and insects by keeping this meadow open, which is quite a struggle. Anybody who's managed, a 17-acre meadow knows that that's not trivial. And it requires mowing. There's a lot of prairie vegetation out there, and there's a tremendous diversity of flowers and insects there too. And I take it all quite seriously. I think of myself as a sort of a dirty, unsung superhero, and my superpower is saving economically worthless wildlife that would die without me, like this painted turtle. And this is actually the truck cresting the hill as this picture was taken actually gunned its engines and sped up, trying to hit that turtle before I could get it out of the road. And my favorite part of this picture is the Greek chorus of starlings on the guardrail watching. Go, Julie, go, get that turtle. So I am the person people call when there's a goose down on the levee that gets tangled up in monofilament and has a broken wing, and who are you going to call? Who's going to wade out in the river in February to get a goose? That would be me. The goose is fine. Its wing has always been broken, and it lives on corn and handouts. So anybody who calls about it, I say it's fine. But in this case, it was wrapped up pretty good in monofilament, and I cut it free. So I think of my job as looking out the window and sharing what I see, and that's really what I wind up doing. And in this incredible snowstorm, I've been just grooving on the blue jays because they come in so well for the food, and I get to study each one's face and try to differentiate individuals. I have now got 5 identified rock solid that I can recognize on site, and that takes many days of just scrutinizing their features and trying to tell them apart. This is just a glimpse of the art for the bluebird effect before it was sent off for scanning, organized on top of my flat file there. And it's a prodigious job to illustrate books and, to write and illustrate books. It's much easier to take photographs, but I kind of do it the old-fashioned way without aid of any computers whatsoever. And I guess I have to pay homage to books. Didn't longer felt it was a 50-cent gold and Indians in the Old West, and that book was a halftone reproduction of an incredible painting that of a buffalo jump with the Native Americans chasing them over the edge of the jump and processing them below. And this is what it should look like. William Lee, I've long since found the original color. What an incredible illustration. And I thought that if I could do anything even close to this, that I would be a very happy girl. I've never done anything even close to this, but illustrating is something I really love to do. I was very, very lucky in the parent lottery. This is my dad. He was always grubby, usually barefoot. He knew how to do everything. He grew up on a farm in Iowa. He knew everything there was to know about farm animals and growing things. And I was so lucky to learn at his feet. I followed him around. I was the youngest of 5, and he wished I'd been a boy, and I did my damnedest to be one, but it turned out I was a girl. But this is kind of a neat picture because we are looking at Audubon prints on a Sunday afternoon. Not your typical pursuit, but my dad had gathered these for me and wanted to talk about them. And we're looking at the tern there. You can see a common tern. And I kind of came full circle on this Arctic tern when a friend asked me to restore his original elephant folio print. And the way it looked when I got it was on the left, and the way it looked when I sent it back to him was on the right. And I can't tell you what a thrill it was to paint over the lines of Havel the engraver and Audubon's drawing, and to bring that bird back to life. And he liked it so well that he sent me the common tern to do too. So that was way cool. And I loved doing it. The paper was actually great, super absorbent, but a really good rag paper. So anybody who has original elephant folio prints, give me a call, I can help. So books that shaped me, my dad would read to me. He didn't read me kids' books. He read me Ernest Thompson Seton. And from a very early age, it was clear to me that animals had sentience, they had goals and hopes and dreams and desires. And I was fascinated by Seton's tales because they came from such a position of authority. He had personally observed what he wrote about and drew. And another person my dad loved to read me was Konrad Lorenz, who was the Austrian animal behavioralist who allowed gray-lag geese to imprint on him and follow him all over town and swim with him and preen his hair. Pretty sweet. And he wrote a book called Man Meets Dog, which is still a classic. And I love his little marginal cartoons here of dogs. I was enamored of the Hollings, Holling and Lucille Holling. Of course, the man only got the only billing, but actually Lucille did the paintings. So this was the 50s, of course, and so that's how they did it then. The woman would, toil away there in obscurity, and the man would get the actual credit for it. But those are Lucille's drawings and paintings, and she had been painting soft porn for magazines before they turned to natural history, which is their true love. And they made some incredible books about, animals that people don't think a lot about, like snapping turtles and hermit crabs. But man, that was right up my alley. So Louis and Lois Darling were very influential in terms of artistic style. And a lot of people don't know that, of course, Louis illustrated the Beverly Cleary series, Ribsy, Beezus, and Ramona. And what people don't know is that Lois did all the animals. So Louis did those incredible people, and Lois did all the Ribsy drawings. Lois drew the dinosaurs for The Enormous Egg by Oliver Butterworth. And they both illustrated Silent Spring, the first edition by Rachel Carson, who was a friend of theirs. There's Lois in her little one-person canoe, which I now paddle around in. And Lois was a mentor to me and an incredible friend. And I was absolutely amazed to meet her when I was working for the Nature Conservancy in Connecticut at a donor party and fundraiser, and we became fast friends. So that was really cool. So I remember where I was standing in the attic of a used bookstore on Martha's Vineyard on a rainy October day when I first saw the artwork of Edith Holden, the Edwardian lady who the Country Diary sort of took the world by storm when it came out. And I looked at those paintings and I thought, well, that's what I've been doing. I've been going out and gathering things from the field and doing watercolor studies and writing at the bottom. And I just felt like I'd met my sister, but she died actually the year my mother was born. I guess my greatest unseen mentor is Louis Fuertes, who is arguably the greatest living bird painter ever. And this is his last work that he did in Ethiopia. And he was the illustrator for a scientific collecting expedition to Ethiopia. And whenever I'm tempted to feel sorry for myself that I can't find the exact watercolor paper or brushes that I'm used to, I remember the story of Louis on his way to Ethiopia, and then called Abyssinia. And the steamer trunk with all his supplies in it went overboard. And Louis had to go to a bookstore in Addis Ababa and buy tone paper that was meant for pastels and a child's watercolor set and brushes. And he did these paintings with those materials. So it is not the materials, it is the person wielding them. Bob Clem was a great mentor. He was, I don't know if you guys remember the book that came out in the mid-70s called Shorebirds of North America. The text was by Peter Matheson, and the illustrations were by Robert Verity Clem. I made several pilgrimages out to Bob's home at the very tip of Cape Cod near Monomoy. And he helped me in a way no one else had ever before by looking at my art and telling me what was bad about it and what I could correct and the occasional thing that he thought was pretty okay about it. And that was amazing. I was working finally to try to impress somebody who really knew what they were talking about. So I can't overemphasize what that meant to me. The other amazing thing that Bob did was he just would randomly send me big boxes of good watercolor paper that he said he had no use for. I don't doubt that. We all amass watercolor paper we have no use for, but it was pretty darn nice watercolor paper. So that's help that helps. Bob told me that to draw whatever was in front of me. If I only had house sparrows in my yard, I should draw house sparrows. Well, I was living in Connecticut at the time and I had turkeys. So that was great fun to draw wild turkeys. And he said, concentrate on the poses that are not easy. The bird facing away, 3/4 away, directly at you. And that's how you learn anatomy. So I took that and ran with it, and I had a sketchbook over my shoulder all the time and binoculars around my neck. And I'm so grateful for that incubator for drawing. I spent an entire summer under an osprey nest sketching them. And I wish I could do that now. My life has gotten complicated by actual, paying work and magazine editing and acquiring art for BWD magazine. So I don't get to do a lot of sketching anymore, but I know that I can. He told me to sketch and draw from birds that were dead and to get my salvage permit so I could handle them. And that's exactly what I did. So I did life-size paintings of dead birds, and I learned a tremendous amount about them. I learned how grebe's legs work, only out to the side, and that a little pied-billed grebe weighs an exact pound, which is stunningly heavy for such a small bird, and how small their wings were, and all the things that you can learn by handling and drawing that you can't learn any other way. And so I became an illustrator and, of course, did a lot of time doing field guide work, which is the only work that's really available to bird painters that pays anything. And it pays about the same now as it did in 1980. There's a glass ceiling on it, and you wind up doing things for very cheap or free, but you do learn a lot. But I grew tired of it because I wanted to paint birds in scenes. I wanted to tell stories, and I wanted to imagine what it would be like to find an ivory-bill nest in Louisiana in a live sweet gum and, to see them feeding their young. So I would construct these scenes, and that turned out to be a good thing to be able to do. And I wound up doing some work for the Department of Defense, which, proving grounds are actually great places for wild birds because they're too light to set off the ordnance. And they don't get disturbed out there because nobody walks on those proving grounds. So burrowing owls and tanks get along okay. And then I guess the largest illustration job that I did at any one time was illustrating the birds of North America, which is now called Birds of the World and is online. But I'm looking up at a shelf in my studio that has all the volumes when it came out in print, and I got a subscription for doing the drawings, and I got paid for it, and that was pretty awesome. So they asked me to draw anything that they couldn't get photos of, which at that time, when I was doing it in the 90s, was a lot of stuff. So I did a ton of drawings and learned a lot more. So now I illustrate the occasional book, but mostly I illustrate my own work, my own articles and books. And this was actually for Alan Poole, the osprey expert, who wanted a painting that would sort of signify that ospreys can cross vast oceans and without stopping. And so I decided to show a tanker to sort of indicate this was at sea. I guess the sexiest commission you can get is to illustrate the cover of a bird atlas. That's lots of fun because a lot of really good birders are going to see it. So I've done a couple for Pennsylvania, and I just did Ohio's not too long ago and West Virginia's as well. And every year I do a commission for the Wilson Ornithological Society, which is an award for a person who's done their life's work on a certain species, and I get to paint that species. And I'm about to find out what this year's species is, but a couple years ago it was Puerto Rican toady, which was a lot of fun. And the monarch was a commission. So you get the picture. I paint birds and I write about them, and it's a nice pursuit because when I'm really tired of writing, then I can do a painting job, and it kind of reinvigorates my creativity, and then I want to go back to writing. And I actually never really get tired of either one, but it's nice to switch back and forth because it uses different parts of your brain, I think. Those are imperial woodpeckers in the Sierra Madres of Mexico, where we wish they still were. I guess this is one of my favorite commissions, a guy who wanted a Say's Phoebe in the Flint Hills of Kansas, and he wanted these particular stone fence posts that they use out there, and he wanted this particular species of yucca and this particular native sunflower. And so I just put this whole scene together, and to me the whole thing, I had it all painted and laid out, and I put the sky in, and it just kind of came to life because I got the perspective of the clouds going away, and it was so fun to do, to kind of bring all those elements together. I guess I love a challenge and I love a deadline. So that's kind of what motivates me. I guess I'm an illustrative painter. But I had an epiphany in 1993 when I had illustrated this book called Backyard Birds, and the author used a nom de plume, and Jonathan Pine. And I got the manuscript for it, and I asked the designer if I might do some edits on the manuscript, because I didn't see anything right about it. So I rewrote the manuscript and corrected myriad errors and illustrated it. And the book went on to win a John Burroughs medal, which none of my books have ever won. And I thought, I should probably be writing and illustrating my own books now. So that was the turning point. I said, okay, I'm just going to do my own work from now on. And Baby Birds was a 13-year long project in which I painted 17 species of birds from egg to fledging, and mostly from life. And I was amazed to find that nobody had ever done that, actually taken a bird in hand and painted it from life every day. So that was pretty cool. But I knew a lot about bluebirds. So I thought, well, if I'm going to paint baby birds, I'd like to paint baby birds. I'm fascinated by how they change. So I started with bluebirds because I could get bluebirds, and I was taking care of them in my boxes. And so I started with that, and my kids were very young, and I would take them around with me, of course, to check the boxes. And there's just nothing like letting your kids on that kind of mystery and that kind of magic. I can't recommend it highly enough. So I was seeing scenes like this every day where, this little bluebird is straddling a couple of pipping eggs and its new sibling. And I just thought, that's so wonderful. I've got to figure out a way to share it. So I started painting the babies, just, take them in hand, bring them in the studio. 20 minutes later, I have 3 paintings, and I put it back in the nest, and then I go back the same time the next day and paint it again. So here's what they looked like by day 10 and 11. And I was so hooked. I was just like, wow, this is the coolest thing I've ever done. And, but by day 12, I had to stop because you can't handle baby birds that are older than about that, because they will jump out of the nest because they're afraid of you. So had to quit. Now, how did I safely get my hands on the baby birds to paint them? I was only working with birds that I could get out of my nest boxes. And my nest boxes are all baffled. And I actually was walking up the meadow, marveling that both tree swallows were on top of their box at the same time. And I did not even see the black rat snake climbing the fence post there. But the baffle, of course, would stop it from climbing up to get the young. So I just want to emphasize that first, do no harm. I never invited predators to follow me to a nest because they couldn't get to it, basically. So this is a white-breasted nuthatch from the Baby Birds series. And I just want you to appreciate how square it is and how it looks like a little truck. I adore nuthatches. And this is what it looks like when I'm painting. I have the baby in my left hand warm under a heat light. And I am painting and drawing frantically with my right. So I have my palette on the right and I'm just dipping away and painting away from life. And this is what it looks like when I feed them. Look at it go down his throat. Oh, he's gonna poop. Keep shooting. Keep shooting.
Oh my God.
I know. It's pretty amazing, huh? He feels so much better now. Thanks, Liam. So my son made that little video, and it just cracks me up every time because you never know what was going to be going on in the studio, and that's what my kids have grown up with. So that's a white-breasted nuthatch, and there's its portrait on the paper there. They grew up, and I was unprepared for them to stay in the nest as long as they did. I think they were in there for 23 days. So I actually ran out of paper, and I had to condense my writing, but I was taking copious notes on them. By the time the babies looked like the one in the photo there, I had to quit working with them because they were getting too old and they were too jumpy. So what I did after that was I quickly shot a photo in the nest box door and then painted from that. So you can see the baby in the hand there on the painting, and all the paintings after that of the growing nestlings were done from photos. So that's my process, and that sheet is 20 by 30. So this is a very large watercolor, and I actually had to kind of like crawl all over it to finish it. But those are that's what the paintings for baby birds look like, the original paintings. And there they are in the nest, and you can see the female with her gray cap is in front, and the male with his black cap is in back. And one thing I learned that is not in the books anywhere is that a baby bird keeps the same position in the nest throughout its infancy. And that is a way I would imagine for the parents to know who is who's been fed, and they will fight to get back to that spot. If you take them out of their nest, they will immediately resort and put themselves back in the right places. Pretty cool. So I worked with all the cavity nesters that I could that were in my boxes, and then I was just itching to work with some open cup nesters like cardinals and song sparrows and things like that. Open cup nests are a lot more vulnerable than cavity nests, so the young develop a lot faster, and I was fascinated by that difference. Like, look at this. A pileated woodpecker is in the nest for 26 days, simply because it has the luxury to be so, and its biology is all geared to being in this safe, warm cavity. A northern cardinal is out of the nest by day 9. So that is a profound difference in developmental speed and their readiness for flight when they fledge. Obviously, a cardinal can't fly at day 9, but it's fully feathered, which is more than you can say for a 9-day-old woodpecker. So I wound up raising quite a few birds because I've always done rehab in between. And I really need to work up a talk on my bat rehab, Sarah, because it's a hoot. But I do a lot of bird rehab or I did a lot more than I do now. I try to cut down on that, but I've raised 3 different mourning doves and they are absolute loves. They also are amazing because they develop so quickly. Like day 1, they look like these little yellow teddy bears. And then by day 4, they're already sprouting feather quills. By day 6, they look like porcupines. And by day 8, those feathers are bursting the sheaths. And by day 10, they are fully feathered and they're out of that nest by day 12. Which to me is an absolute miracle. And how do they do that? Well, look at that. Those birds are flying on day 12. They feed them rocket sauce. The adult doves, both male and female, are stimulated by prolactin to produce this food in their crop. The whole lining actually sloughs off, and they make this incredible fatty food that is 57% protein and 34% fat by dry weight. So that's why those babies blow up like they're being pumped with a bicycle pump. The only other birds that do this are emperor and king penguins, and flamingos and pigeons. So that is pretty cool. So as I went along in the process of putting together baby birds, I did not know I was doing a book. I just knew I had to keep painting these squishy things. But by the time I decided that it needed to be a book, with the help of my agent who flipped out when he saw the paintings, I was mad to get cuckoos. I wanted to paint cuckoos because Bill had found, my husband had found cuckoos in our orchard. And they were standing on the shards of their eggs. They were just hatched and they were already standing up. And look what happened when I hit the nest with my camera. They're flapping their wings. They are 1 day old. And they're trying to scare me. They do look like snakes. So I knew there was a story here and I needed to tell it. So it turns out that the yellow-billed and black-billed cuckoos have the largest egg to body size ratio. In other words, the largest egg for their body size of any birds in North America. You can see those enormous blue eggs under the female there. And in that enormous egg is a huge, very well-provisioned yolk. And by day 2, they can perch on the rim of the nest and snap at passing flies. They're already getting their feathers by day 4. By day 6, the feathers burst the sheaths. And by day 7, they are fully feathered and have climbed out of the nest. It is an arc somewhat similar to that of the doves. But they don't get any crop milk. They just are fed enormous insects like katydids and grasshoppers, which they gobble down. And after they fledge, they take a more sort of normal growth arc. They're fed until about day 21. But speed in getting out of the nest is the common denominator of open cup nesters, because open cup nests are so dangerous. Any predator can go in and help themselves to the contents. So those birds are under enormous pressure to get out of the nest as fast as possible. So I had done the book. There were 17 species of songbirds. It took me 13 years to amass them. And I had just sent in the manuscript, and I got 3 brown thrashers, which was a grail bird for me. And I had to raise them. And I gave them good Southern names, Cletus, Melba, and Harper. They were so adorable. And I kept them in a big nylon tent in my garage, so they were never caged. My birds are always free to fly, 20-foot long tent. And they can't hurt themselves in there. So I did something I called Your Daily Thrasher on Instagram, which was tremendously popular. But I've since gotten smart and realized that when I post the birds I raise on social media, it's like a big ad that says, if you find a baby bird, here's who you call. And I can't be raising birds every minute of my life. So I've stopped posting on social media, and I'm telling myself that it's going into my books now. But to watch these birds grow up was such an honor. They are very cat-like. They do not want to be touched or cuddled, but they will pull each other's tails and then run away. They're very, very funny birds. So that's the fledging tent. And when time comes for them to fledge, I move it out into the yard so they can get a full dose of the sun and the wind and the air and the songs of other birds. And before long, I zip it open. Look at the difference between a 10-day-old and a 50-day-old brown thrasher. Melba was very interesting. She took off upon release and took up with the family of wild brown thrashers that was nesting just down my driveway. But she came back when she was 50 days old, and she looked amazing. She was actually adopted by them. The the male thrasher would come every morning and sing outside the tent for my babies. I don't know why he did that, but I was so grateful because when Cletus started to sing, he had a beautiful song just like his foster dad's. So Carolina wrens are a touchstone species for me, and I had always wanted to raise them. I painted them, of course, because they nest in my hanging baskets right outside my door, and they are very ugly nestlings, but grow up to be the most amazing little birds. So in 2023, I finally got my chance to raise Carolina wren.
Okay, hang on. I gotta stop filming and feed you. Okay, hang on.
Little baby talk there. They develop very quickly. They feather out day 9, and they usually fledge by day 12 or 13. Here they are growing and feathering out. These were orphaned by a house cat. You can see I have dabs of paint on their foreheads, acrylic paint, so I can tell one from another. Good job, Yellow. I really, really enjoy watching little things grow and
Anybody else?
thrive.
Bueller?
I have a dog named Curtis Lowe who is a hunting dog, and he came to me a rough cut diamond when he was 4 years old. He'd just been neutered. He had been tied to a box in Gallipoli, Ohio for most of his life, and he had a lot to learn, but he was also very wise. And being a hunting dog, he's hooked into my mental circuitry, and he understood instinctively that though he had been raised being asked to kill everything, he couldn't kill birds. I made him understand that just almost by telepathy. So here he is coming up to meet the wrens through the mesh of the tent.
Babies. Come here, see the babies. Come on, Bert. Yeah, come see the babies. He's smelling the babies.
I'll leave now. This is a bit much of a temptation.
Well, only one of you had the sense to fly. That's not good news.
They kind of knew that he was no threat. And later on in life, they would clamber all over him as he lay on the front porch. It was pretty darn sweet. Here they are. One of the surprising things about Carolina wrens is that they seek out contact with their foster mom. And I would feed them, of course, every half hour to 45 minutes, dawn to dark. And after feeding, they were all over me. They would get into my hand, they would snuggle down, and I called it puddling. And they wanted to be on me. They wanted to be up under my chin, and it was amazing. I mean, especially after the thrashers who didn't want anything to do with me, to have these little things just seek me out. They are so intelligent and so sensitive. Each one trying to get in the middle. And this is, they're preparing to go to take a nap in my hand. Ugh, I just love them. So this is a typical puddling session.
Then, as soon as the feeding is done, this is what happens. They want cuddles. And given a choice, they would sleep on me for the next hour until the next feeding. But I have things to do. So I set an alarm on my phone and it goes off on the hour. And I come out and they're good and hungry. And I feed them. And then I cuddle them a little bit so they know they're loved. Yep, you are loved. Ooh, finally you did hear that. Then I go back inside and work for an hour and see what I can get done before the 5-minute interlude comes on the hour. Every hour for 13 hours a day.
You don't get a lot else done when you're raising baby birds. But they grew up into these incredibly sharp little birds. They looked great. They were just really, really smart and really capable. And by day 23, they were still being fed 13 times a day. Not that I was counting. And this is later, they were just about ready for release here. This is a typical sort of after feeding session.
Been a while since they've done this.
They're so sweet. This is the first subduing of a worm by Orange. I was so proud of him. Cameo by Pink. Come on, Orange, you can do it. Kill it. Down the hatch, man. Good.
Good job, Orange. I'm so proud of you. What a good baby. What a good boy you are.
So 10 days of that kind of fumbling around, and then they were all eating well enough to be released. You can hear the wild wrens singing outside. Finally, day 31. Time to open the tent.
In and out, just busy, busy, busy. Oh, too scary. Go back. Go back.
So this tent is in my detached garage, and I can zip it open, and then they have access to the outdoors. But the beauty of it is that they can come back in the tent at night, and I can zip it up and close the garage doors, and no raccoon or snake is going to get them. So the first day they were out, I wasn't sure what would happen, but they came back to the tent in the evening.
First day of freedom. They were out all afternoon. About 5 on, I guess. And at 8, they came back into the tent, just as I prayed they would. I zipped it up, and they will sleep safely.
So this went on for quite a while.
Orange always sleeps on the bottom.
And they learned their way around the yard and widening their circle the whole way, getting to know the resident Carolina wrens. And what was really interesting is even after they were, oops, hang on. You hear that little skivit?
Where are you? Where'd you go? Where'd you go, Pinky? Are you under there?
They are talking to me with that call.
Is that your little home? Your little troll house?
And they're fully
Troll
independent,
house.
but they're still giving the juvenile skvit call whenever they see me. And they kept doing that into September, which is not what wild wrens do. But it began to sink in on me that these birds were going to stay in that tent
What did
every
you say if I
night
told you these guys?
for quite a
And
while.
then we flew back into their tent on their 3rd day of freedom. Spent every night in the tent.
So we had quite a ritual where I would wait for them to come to the tent and then zip it up. And that went on, I think they came back to the tent for 18 nights. By the time they finally, severed their ties with the tent and were spending a lot of time outside, I had to figure out how to outsmart the titmice in my yard who steal all their food, no matter where I hide it. So I came up with something I called the wrenarium, which is a critter keeper turned on its side. I cut a hole in the screen in my studio window that only a wren would want to go in. and they could come in and eat their worms and then exit, and no other wild bird could get in there to do it. This is something you could really only do with Carolina wrens because they're so smart. Pretty slick. I'll take one to go. But I was very proud of this little invention. It was pretty awesome. But then the titmice got onto it. And so what I had to do was put tracing paper over the entire thing. So the titmice couldn't see through it. And even though there was tracing paper totally obscuring the contents of the box, the wrens had object permanence and knew that the wrens would be in there, or the worms would be in there. So they would come and go freely from this opaque box, and that foiled the titmice entirely. So that was pretty cool. They are mental giants. So here they are. I released them on June 18, and they were still coming into the tent on day 49, July 6th. So 18 days.
Number 2 and number 3. And there's the
That's the
roost
roost
call.
call.
A little roosty call, and they all go to bed. Peace.
It was an amazing summer. This is the last night that they stayed in the tent, or they
Roost on me.
they would not go into the tent this night. So they came as if to say, things have changed. We're going to sleep in your hair.
It's been a while since I've had a head full of wrens. Please go up to the roosting thing I made for you. It's late. Yes, a very good place to sleep tonight. I'll just stand here. How's that? I know, Curtis. We're trying to get them to go up to their roost place.
They're not going to. So they wound up sleeping in an arborvitae that night, and that was the last time they ever used the tent. I was so glad to get my garage back, I can't even tell you, and to wash that tent and put it away. So they came back through the summer into September. They would come and peek in the studio window. And when they saw me and met eyes with me, they'd give the kavit call, even though they were essentially almost adults. So that was really, really cool. But here they were as of January 21st, 2024. They came back and they were sleeping in the pink fleece that I put in a roost box on the front porch. And this is a fresh picture from January 9. They are still sleeping in there. I'm not sure who it is, but I'm pretty darn sure the wild bird doesn't want to sleep in polar fleece. So that's my guess. And this past May, one of them raised its young in that same little box.
I'm sitting 7 feet under this wren. Is feeding young in the box where wrens slept in pink fleece all winter long. I have not had a cross word from this pair. Takes a feed. Flies off. There they go.
I've had,
Gotta be my baby. I've never seen a wren behave like that.
yeah, I've had wrens nesting on my porch for 33 years.
Right here, and right over my head is the nest. What do you think?
And in those 33 years, I've never had a bird that was that comfortable, feeding babies without keeping its eye on me, when I was right under the nest. So I'm pretty sure that was Pinky. bringing up babies in that box. And I think Pinky is still with me and still sleeping in the polar fleece. So one of the great lessons of rehab is that you have to be willing to drop everything to do what you're being called to do, the wildlife rehab. And Joseph Conrad put it best when he said, we must be willing to give up the life we had planned in order to have the life that is waiting for us. I never thought that I would be a widow in my early 60s, but my husband got pancreatic cancer and died in March of 2019. And it was up to me to finish raising our kids, which luckily they were, pretty well grown, but losing your dad is never an easy thing at all. And I am so enjoying being here for them. That's Liam and Phoebe's new husband, Oscar, who is from the Canary Islands. And we are all getting much better at Spanish for it. So I go out to Bill's grave. He's buried, a green burial right in the meadow. Very often, every day actually, to sort of ask him questions and tell him what's going on. And he had always said that the next bird on our yard list would be a solitary sandpiper, and darned if there wasn't one walking circles around his grave in May of 2021. That's it, the little dot in the path there to the right of the pine tree. So I've kind of made a pursuit of photographing the wildlife that I see when I'm out there. This is a beautiful coyote who just let me look at him and sat down, in fact, just to watch me. It was amazing. And I keep having these encounters out there. A box turtle looking for a mate in May of 2024, just this past spring. And a beautiful doe, May 31st. The deer seem to just hang out by that grave a lot. And it all brings to mind the beautiful Robert Frost quote. He had a terribly tragic life, lost wife and children so early. And he said, in 3 words, I can tell you everything I've learned about life. It goes on. And that is something that I have learned about life too, that you have no choice but to keep trudging and make it the best you can. I never thought I would be tending the graves of my husband and both his parents on my land at my age, but there you go. And I am the only member of the Thompson family who is still involved with the magazine that they started, and I'm advising editor now. So I never thought that would happen either. One of the things that Bill did when he was alive was he kept the meadows by mowing them with our old Massey Ferguson. And, a box elder is my least favorite tree, even though it's native, because it will turn a meadow into a forest in no time flat. So I had begged him to do this mowing in 2018 because I was frantic that these box elders were taking over and getting too big to cut. All through our marriage, he had said, don't you touch that chainsaw. Don't you even look at it. You will cut your leg off. One of the first things I did after he died was buy a chainsaw, because I knew that unless I took over that kind of land management, which he did in a desultory way, that our place would not be what I wanted it to be. So I knew I had to step up and learn some skills. And I did get it hung up in the sycamore. I still get it stuck every now and then, but I've never gotten it really stuck. The whole key for me is to use batteries. I'm not fond of gasoline engines. They don't like me. I don't get along with them, but man, do I love electric. So this is a typical morning of clearing, vegetation, which is, it turns out, the main thing that you wind up doing when you own 80 acres of land and you're trying to keep a meadow. This is one of my eagle's nests, as I call them, which is just all exotic vegetation: autumn olive, Japanese honeysuckle, Amur honeysuckle, and these are things that have to be removed if the natives are to prosper. That's my son Liam standing atop the pile. And this is not a permanent pile. These get burned and then I make another, and then they get burned and I make another, sometimes several times a year. And the whole point being to remove what I don't want so that what I do want, which is dogwoods and redbuds and tulip trees and spicebush, can grow. And New England aster. And I don't want a field full of box elders and tulips. I want forbs and herbs and grasses and butterflies. So I'm always at it. And we planted a gorgeous prairie meadow in the orchard, and it's just my heart's delight. It's so wonderful. If you ever have to buy native seed, yes, the price tag is tremendous, but oh, the reward is incredible. So my dad always predicted that I would become a horticulturist because I'd been doing it since I was about 7 years old, and he's right. I mean, that's what I love. I really love horticulture. And I am always amazed at the way plants can transform our experience of our homes, being outside. I mean, you can see behind me, I've got my house plants, my little buddies around me here, and they are just an endless source of delight. My rules are everything in the orchard and meadows has to be native, but I get to plant whatever the heck I want right around the house. So I have some things that aren't native up around the house. And, you know, evening primroses, who can resist a flower that opens as you watch? This is real time. And they attract the big sphinx moths, which is such a thrill. I plant giant larkspur because there's a bunny in the middle of each flower. And why would you not want a flower that has a bunny in the middle of it? It's also great for hummingbirds and great for butterflies and especially bees. So I enjoy that. So when the pandemic hit, I was giving a ton of talks, and I was just about to go on a long planned book tour for Saving Jemima, my last book, which came out in 2019. And I had to cancel my entire book tour. I actually almost got stranded in Nebraska at a bluebird festival because they shut down all domestic flights. And there I was, you know, at a festival. And I got home by the skin on my chin. So here I was, all of a sudden confined at home. And I thought, well, I'm going to create the perfect bird bath because I've always wanted to do this. I knew that I had to construct it because nothing out there felt right to me. So this is the warbler fall, which is my pandemic project. And you are now about to see me go all sham wow on you because this is my 2-minute video pitch.
Is your bird bath hopping busy with birds? No? I can help. If you're watching this, you're a bird lover like me. You bring them in with food, even plant the things they like. But wouldn't it be cool to lure in some more unusual birds like warblers, vireos, tanagers, and kinglets that won't come to feeders? I took all these photos from my studio window. And why are these seldom seen forest birds hopping around in my garden? Because of the homemade bird fountain bubbling away just below. I'm going to show you how to build the perfect bird fountain, one that so closely imitates nature, small birds find it irresistible. There's nothing like it in stores, I know. I've searched high and low for decades. Nothing I found was what birds wanted. Finally, I decided to build my own. My invention is the single most effective bird attractant in my yard, and I have one heck of a yard. I'm Julie Zickefoose, naturalist, artist, and author. I commune with birds through science, art, and spirit. As contributing editor to Birdwatchers Digest, I've been writing and painting covers for the magazine for 36 years. I raise and rehabilitate wild birds so I truly understand what they want and how they think. This do-it-yourself video tutorial and detailed guide will show you how to build a warbler fall, the tested, true, best bird bath I've found. I've done all the thinking and legwork to help you build a lovely spa that will draw hard-to-attract birds right to your garden. In case you're afraid special tools or knowledge are required, fear not. Nor is it expensive. You can make this luxury bird spa for under $60 and have lots of fun doing it. It looks deceptively simple, but I've put years of research into this and I'll give you all my secrets for success. The key to the warbler fall's magnetic attraction to birds is its perfect recreation of bathing spots they seek out in nature. Think you don't have interesting birds around? Wait till they hear the water music you'll create. Keep your field guide handy. Your warbler fall will bring in birds you didn't know you had.
Well, that actually worked. I wound up creating a one-page website. I sold the plans. I continue to sell the plans. And not only did the website work and the sales pitch work, but the bird bath works. This is a September scene with bay-breasted Blackburnian and Cape May warblers all bathing together. And this is not a great photo, but if you look closely, there are 9 individuals of 5 different warbler species all coming in to the warbler fall there. They are attracted by the sound and the sight of the moving water. So I obviously had a hit on my hands, but it took my dear neighbor, Laura Hughes, to create a video compilation that puts all my still photos to shame. This is so great. Feeding him in the bath. Yellow warbler goes, dang, can I get in on that? Cerulean warbler, are you kidding me? This is a rare bird for us. Last but not least, my favorite, the bunny. But it gets better. It gets better. Laura, with her trail cam skills, caught this. Listen to this. I can confidently say that I'm never going to get a bald eagle in my warbler fall, but it can happen. So the proceeds from the warbler fall so far have paid for about half of my dream greenhouse, which is, again, something I never could have anticipated. I felt I deserved a greenhouse after working with a plastic hobby box for many years. I had 2 different iterations of a plastic greenhouse. And I finally had one built and installed a year ago, because you only live once. And it is my she shed, my little room, and it gets me through the dull Ohio Valley winters. I grow whatever the heck I want in there, including fancy geraniums and crazy Huernia zebrina cactus. It's actually not a cactus. It's called a lifesaver plant. It's in the Asclepiadae. It's in the Apocynaceae. It's related to dog banes from Africa. I grow fancy hibiscus and I propagate them, and I actually sell the plants that I grow in there because I try to make my hobbies pay for themselves. And this was taken just a couple nights ago, and it kind of sums up how I feel about my little magical pleasure dome and what fun it is to have built that and finally at 66 have what I always wanted. So as I said, a lot of this talk is about stuff that I never anticipated would happen. I knew I had been affiliated with Birdwatchers Digest since I painted my first cover, a ruby crowned kinglet, in 1986. How could I know that I would marry the editor and publisher. How could I know that after his death, I would help carry on the publication? The magazine briefly collapsed in April 2021, but by June 2021, we got a couple of angel publishers swooped in who promised to leave us alone to do what we were best at, and a very small staff of women and one man put out this redesigned full-size print version of the magazine, which we believe is better and more beautiful even than the original. So I'm extremely proud to have that. So if you'll visit me at warblerfall.com and bwdmagazine.com and get yourself a subscription, I would most appreciate it. This is the first time that I've felt that our covers really showcase the paintings the way they should. And my photography inside looks mighty fine too. And it has inspired me to write my column with much more fervor and love than I had put into it before, because it is such a beautiful magazine now. So I'll just end by saying this wonderful quote. It's rephrased, but by Howard Thurman. Do not ask the world what you should do. Do what sets you on fire. The world needs people that are on fire. Thank you so much.
Oh, that was wonderful, Julie.
Thank you.
Yes. I would love it if somebody had some questions or something that they might like to ask you. So go ahead and take yourself off of mute and ask your question, or you can have Kathy Obersitter call on you specifically. So it's up to you.
I have a question,
Yeah.
Sure.
Sarah. Thinking about the meadows, out here where we live, there were prehistorically meadows that were maintained by the indigenous people here with fire.
Mm-hmm.
And I wondered whether the same happened in Ohio.
Probably, yeah. Yeah. I mean, we were completely deforested. When the first settlers came out. It was, and if you want to see what that looks like in Ohio, just go to Amish country. They cut everything. They don't even have hedgerows, you know. And so you can see what Ohio looked like under intensive agriculture. As far as the Native Americans, I think there was a bit of burning as well, you know, but I'm not an expert on that. But I don't really dare use fire because my house is right there.
Oh, no, I didn't.
And we've tried it, you know, but we could not get it to burn. You know, we couldn't get a good burn going. And I do burn my brush piles, and I have a massive one now I'm waiting to burn, but I get help when I have a fire. I usually have 3 or 4 men come, and we'll all stand with our shovels around it and make sure it doesn't get away from us.
Thank you, Jim.
Mm-hmm.
Trisha Arte? Can't hear you.
Got to turn on your mic.
It looks like it's on.
Can you hear me now?
There you are.
There you are.
Yeah. With your observation tower, have you come up with a marvelous method to keep birds from striking the windows?
Yeah. The tower we don't have a problem with, particularly because they can see through it, and it doesn't reflect so much because it's glass on all sides. But I have had terrible problems with the big windows in the studio and now the greenhouse. So every problem window in my house is treated. I have crop netting on a PVC frame over the studio windows. And I just finished drawing parallel lines with white auto marker, vertical lines all over the greenhouse, which was very interesting because I was teetering on a ladder. I drew them 4 inches apart because that was the information I had. And now I see they've said it's 2 inches apart. So I'm like, really? So far, I've not had a collision with the 4-inch spacing. all life is an experiment. So I'm just going to see how it goes. But I will tell you that while I actually ordered Acopian bird savers, which are those parachute cords that hang. And I ordered them for the whole greenhouse, and it was hideously expensive. And then I couldn't find anybody who would come and drill the frame for me to put them in, because I did not want to be handling a power drill at the top of a 12-foot ladder. Everybody who said they'd come wouldn't show up, which is the story of my life. You know, you can't get anybody to help you. So I finally, and then I realized that there are parts of the green, I can't drill along the top of the greenhouse because it's all glass. I'd be drilling into the ends of the glass panes. So I wasted $1,000 on Acopian bird savers that I can't even use. So I said, okay, I got to do something. So that I got up on the ladder and drew the lines, and so far so great. But in the time that I was waiting for someone to help me, the months that I was waiting, 8 birds were killed by that one greenhouse. And it was killing me, you know, it was awful. So for some reason, I just didn't even anticipate that, because I had never had a bird hit my plastic greenhouses. And my mental state was, yay, have a greenhouse, you know? And then when they started hitting it, I was just horrified. So I have taken steps.
One other quick question with your waterfall, do you have to take it in during the freeze?
Yeah, you just stop. And yeah, it will freeze solid because the volume of water in it is not sufficient, you know, it'll just freeze solid. So what I switch over to is a heated dog dish in the winter, or whatever heated bath you prefer. I have people who do put heaters in their warbler falls, but I think it's kind of a losing game as cold as it gets here. So yeah, it's a seasonal thing, but I put it out in April and I run it until almost Christmas. So, you know, it's just a few months of the year that I can't do it in Ohio, but it's a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah.
Anyone else? Sarah.
Have you had people on the West Coast or in the Pacific Northwest build warbler falls, and you know, have you heard feedback from this part of the country?
Yeah, I have. People had a lot of fun with it. Of course, you guys don't have quite the array of warblers that we do, but honestly, it will bring any small forest bird in. And the big surprise to me was kinglets. Who knew that they like to bathe? You know, it's like, oh, and vireos and tanagers. And yeah, so I would say you're probably going to have all kinds of stuff that you would not expect. I keep a list every year here in Ohio, and I hit 45 species since April that bathed in it. And I think my personal best has been 53 in a season. So that's a lot of birds, you know, coming in. And the thing that I like about it is it's fun. You know, it's like every time I clean it, and I clean it quite frequently, I throw all the rocks out and then I reconfigure them. And so it's kind of like when you were a kid and you play in the creek, you know, and I reconfigured different kind of spout of water and different kind of rocks. And it's key to have like a big supply of rocks so you can just, you know, play with that. So I have this big quarry of flat rocks that I just keep switching out.
And related to the warbler fall, is it best on the ground? Your neighbor, her photos were on the ground. Do you
Correct.
on the ground or raised?
I have to raise mine because I have chipmunks, eastern chipmunks, that have learned that they can jump on birds in the bird bath and kill them. Who knew? But you know, I've been here for 33 years, so I've seen pretty much the worst that any animal can do. And so I have these predatory chipmunks, and the biggest bird I've ever seen a chipmunk kill was a mourning dove. A mourning dove.
Wow.
They bite their heads off.
Oh, God.
So putting it up on a 2-foot overturned ceramic pot stops that behavior cold, because they can't sneak up and then leap up into the bath without the bird seeing them coming. So they quit trying. But I see them still, they will make attempts on sunbathing birds. You know how a mourning dove will just kind of like flop over and put a wing out and just do a little sunbathing? That's when they get them. Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. So yeah, so mine, I recommend you put it on the ground unless you have cats and chipmunks around, which a lot of people do. So yeah. And the birds don't mind. They come to it elevated just fine.
Vincent asked if the waterfall needs power.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. That is an electric pump.
Electric pump,
Yeah. And so I run an extension cord and I bury it in the lawn. I just dig a very shallow trench with a trowel and just bury the cord so I can mow right over it. And it's not a problem. So obviously it needed a GFCI outlet. But yeah, that's what I do. And a lot of people ask me if they can use solar. And I say, well, knock yourself out, but it's not going to run on cloudy days. So that kind of takes the fun out of it because we get a lot of cloudy days in spring and fall, especially. Fall, I would say, is the prime time for it. It's just incredible what comes in the fall.
Any other questions? Linda.
Yeah, earlier in the talk, when you had a illustration of some of the baby birds, one of the particular species, the baby birds seem to have a lot of white spots in their mouths or their throats.
That was the cuckoos. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So what's the deal with the white spots?
That is it's a thing that cuckoos have. And the only person who has ever done a nest study of yellow-billed cuckoo is a woman from Ohio who in the 70s set up a scope on a cuckoo nest that she could see from her kitchen. And she recorded everything that happened. And the thing that she said was, I believe it's a visual stimulus for the parent. It's kind of like, here, put the food here. There are some zebra finches and things like that have these, they're called pearls in their gapes, but Eloise Potter surmised that there was a function to the cuckoos because she noted that they bring such large orthopteran prey that it's hard for the babies to hang on to them sometimes or get them positioned right. And what she noticed was the cuckoo would jam like a big Katy did into the throat of its baby. And then it would decide it needed to reposition it so the baby could swallow it easier. And when it would try to pull it back out, the baby would come with it. So she thought there was a suction function to those white spots. I'm not going to question that because weirder stuff in the bird world has happened. So I loved that actually. It's like, oh, there's adhesive, it's like, who knows? But yeah, there's probably multiple functions for a feature that marked. And I don't begin to know what they are. But that's why we study, isn't it?
Yep, that's why. Well, we've really enjoyed this very much, Julie.
Wonderful.
I do want everybody to stay on after you clap for her because Govinda has an announcement to make. But otherwise, I really everybody take yourself off of the of your audio so that you can play with it and clap for her because it's been such a pleasure to hear her.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Very enjoyable.
I'm glad you stayed awake.
It's 11:38, ladies.
Oh,
I know.
I couldn't do it.
Anyway,
So much.
thank you very, very much for
Thank
this.
you so much.
And, I'm gonna have this person make an announcement here for us, but
Okay.
we appreciate it.
I'll be leaving.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Govinda.
Yeah, hey, thanks everybody. I showed up at the Unitarian Church thinking that we're having the meeting there and then called Prescott and raced home and was able to get on Zoom. So I note to self, read the instructions twice. So I just have a little bit of the Christmas bird count summary. I have a 6-page report. It was, we have an abbreviated version in the shorelines, but if you would like a long summary, you can email me and I'll send that to you. Just put CBC summary in the subject line, govinda@whidbey.com. So I just wanted to show that we had a very windy day on the 28th, but we did pretty good, I would say. About 13,000 not about, but exactly 13,377 individuals that we categorized into 108 species. We did get one extra species for count week. That was the orange-crowned warbler, thanks to Diane Sheldon. So that puts it at 109. Our most abundant species was the pine siskin at 3,455 individuals. Second most abundance, the American robin at 1,164. And then third is the surf scoter for 937. We did get a lot of white-winged scoters, so that kind of kicks our scoter numbers up to an even cool 1,000. And then a couple of just let's see, unusual birds was a birthday present to Sarah Schmidt of a Townsend warbler that she saw, as well as 2 white-throated sparrows, and then a massive 37 Wilson snipe, all at Ewing Marsh. So again, I've got a very long with some graphs, 6 pages summary. So if you'd like that, I can send it to you through email. And thanks for letting me give this presentation sum up at the end of the meeting instead of the beginning. So thanks. Back to you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have an announcement to make? Sarah, you're.
Yes, I just was going to Govinda's comment about where the meeting was at. I thought while people were here, I would say, so next, what we've done is for January and February, because sometimes there's storms and bad weather, we are only on Zoom. So this month and next month will be only on Zoom. And then in March, we will be back at the Unitarian Church, and we will have Connie Seidels talking about grebes. So she'll be coming in on Zoom, but we will be there in person. It'll be a hybrid.
Anybody else have an announcement to make before we sign off for the evening? It's been great to have you all. I was glad to see you all, and even though I'd rather see you in person, but you know, I can't always do that. So anyway, I was glad to see you tonight, and welcome to the new year, and hopefully we'll all see many, many birds this year. Bye-bye.
Bye, good night.
Night. Thank you.